from all the literary languages, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, Telugu. So, mar in Tamil, to turn back, to exchange. Now, from this, we draw the intended meaning very well. The same mar, Tamil, maru, barter, trader, merchant. I have cited many examples from Sangam literature, but here I would like to cite a verse from Subramanya Bharati to indicate the continuity of tradition. Gangai Puratti, Kodumai Pandam, Kaviri Vechilaki, Maru Kolbom. When he said Maru Kolbom, he said we should receive in water the bitter leaves of the Kaviri, we should give and receive the beat of the Ganga. That Maru is indicated. In other words, an animal is shown turning its back, and that is Maru Padadal. From that Maru, the other meaning is taken, which means barter, trader, merchant. Now, so that is the first research that we did. Then we go to the second side, which is exhibited there, which is quite simply the hook. I have shown a copper fish hook from the Harpan sites of Kipsara in Gujarat, but that is only an example. The hook means every kind of hook. The dictionary gives many meanings: hook, gold, ram, tree, etc. And so the literal meaning of this ideogram is now hook, verb, to hold something to hold. The intended meaning comes by rebus, which I gave below, starting from the literal meaning hold. That is a Dravidian word. In Tamil, it is koluttu, koldi, kol, kondi, there are about a dozen such words, all of which means hook, to hold like a hook. Now from this, we straight away get the rebus, same Indus hook, kol. In Tamil, kol, koldi, kol, koli, which means take, receive, buy, and the receiver, buyer. Here I must explain the rule of the Indus hierarchy that a non-personal noun can stand for the corresponding personal noun. Town, man from town, farm, farmer, flower, flower, and so on. So, here, again, taking a very simple picture of a hook, we get the literal meaning, hold, a hook, from which we get the intended meaning by the word hold, hold, etc. Take, receive, buy, receiver, buyer. If you remember my quotation from Bharati, you already see that A and P are given. A I read as mar, B I read as kol, mar and kol, to receive in barter. When in the text, two signs confirm or corroborate each other, the credibility goes up by geometrical progression. So we go to the third. Here we notice I will again repeat at the same site. That is because there is an alternative reading. How do I know this? I am presenting the story from the beginning, Indus to Vedic to Tamil, but that is not how I did my research. I started from Tamil or Vedic and went up to the Indus. So, from the survivals in Vedic, which I shall show, and the survivals in Old Tamil, I have found out that the word book has really two alternatives. Another alternative, we saw one quote here, the meaning, same meaning, hook or board. The word for it is shed. In Tamil, shed. For example, we have shedil, the hook machine, which the hook is inserted into a man's back and is hoisted high for some kind of a religious obligation. Now this is known in all the Dravidian languages. And there are various other words, in all the 6 languages to mean hook or goal. So we keep before us 2 alternative possibilities and see where they lead us with. Now we go to the next sign, what they call a transparent sign. There are in the industry only a few signs which are so transparent. The other example is an arrow. Here, obviously, the picture shows crossroads and the whole road junction. So, its literal meaning is to begin with the street. The 4 streets are shown, or 2 streets intersecting at the junction are shown. Then from street, it can be a settlement, or it can be city, town or village. And from there, we put the personal noun, a resident of the place, a resident of the settlement, Uran, Nagar, Nagaratan, and so on. Now, in the Dravidian interpretation, I have chosen the root Part, which in Tamil is Padi. Padi in Tamil literally is a street, but it's also the name of a village, Ayapadi, like Padi. It is in modern times occurs in place names like Katpadi and any settlement and a resident is there. So this is case in which we don't get the meaning by us. So here is an alternative technique. It has an advantage. It has a disadvantage. The advantage is you can get the meaning straight by looking at the picture. The disadvantage is you can read in any language. So in order to balance that, we need the whole set, and there should be at least 1 or 2 reverse cases to show that while it can be read in this language, in this context, this must be read only in Dravidian. Next. So this is another case which has an alternative interpretation. Very surprisingly, as you will see. One interpretation is still survives in Malayalam, it's still survives in Old Tamil, and another interpretation, its translation occurs in the Veda. Now, this is also same meaning, crossroads, 4-road junction. Usually in each slide, I repeat the first few entries to provide the linkage. So I will go straight away. What is the alternative meaning? That is word. The root is word. Tamil body. Body. Way, road, path. The intended meaning by the word is war. Here I must explain. That the rules permit change of vowels, even in the word I show. Now, war, Tamil, war, wardi. It means literally residence, resident. Literally residence, resident. Avan and the other thing, Vardina. But it has another figurative meaning, where it means prosperity, Vadi, Tamil Varda, Vadi என்று வழுத்தினார். So this word is not only to live, but to live prosperously. I remember once when an Indian politician came to Malaysia, he said, மற்ற நாடுகளில் தமிழர்கள் வசிக்கிறார்கள், மலேசியாவில் தமிழர்கள் வாழ்கிறார்கள் என்று அவர் சொன்னார். I don't know whether what meaning of his audience was scholarly enough to catch the nuance. So, war or residence prosperity. In Tamil, we have Selva Kadungo, Valiyadan. He was a resident at Kalur. In Malayalam, Vadi is still used for a person who resides in another place to represent the king. The government is called Vadi. And Vadi, of course, is a form of respect. Vadi, and so on. So that is the meaning I give to this. Next. Then we come to the last sign, which is the most frequent sign in the industry by far. It occurs more than 10%. As a parallel, in English alphabet, the letter E has 11 to 12% frequency. So this is the most frequent sign. And another characteristic is it is almost always occurs only at the end. So it has been generally regarded as Dravidian, nominal, masculine, singular suffix. In other words, avan in Tamil. So you can see a pottery inscription from Kali Bangal, which clearly shows what the origin of this sign. So it's one picture in which you cannot have any difference of opinion in identification. Now I shall not, this is the first sign I identified in 1917. It can be done by weavers, but I shall not go through that. I only mention one interesting fact. Even today in Tamil Nadu, if you take a census, the maximum number of people, like me for example, who have their name ending in An. So it was in Malayalam, so it was originally in Kannada. The equivalent of An in old Dravidian is Anundu, where we have dropped the old Telugu as the Anundu. So the intended meaning of this sign is Anundu, he or he of. When we say, for example, we say resident he, the resident is a man, or we say he of the residence. There are two ways of putting the same thing. So with this, we have finished our primary study of all the four signs of this particular Indus phrase. Now where does that take us? Now I am in a position, and I repeat, for the first time in nearly 50 years, that I am able to read an Indus sentence consisting of four signs and giving a meaningful result. So that, next, you put it next. Here you have the whole phrase ABC, wool, hook, crossroads and jar. Now they read respectively mar, kol, part, un, which means barter or barterer, receiving or receiver, settlement or resident, he or he or he. In short, one who receives barter and lives in a city, merchant of the city. When I read the roots, they are monosyllables. In Dravidian, ancient Dravidian, all roots are monosyllables. So that when I read them like this, it will sound strange to you. It will sound like Chinese. Now all that I need to do is just to add a vowel and show how close it is to Tamil. So we can read this in Tamil, ABCD as Mar, Kol, Padi, An. Mar, Kollum, the man who receives water. Padi, An, the man who resides in the party. It is that close. So, in actual Tamil, we find it is not in that way that this phrase survives. It survives in a different way, but with the same rules, which I shall show next. So, now we begin the second section of my presentation. In the first section, I interpreted the phrase in Indus Dravidian. Now we are going to second section, Old Tamil. Nearly 3,000 years later and nearly 3,000 kilometers to the south. Are they really connected? Yes, they are, by the language. The basic roots have remained unchanged, though the form of words and the meaning will go on changing with the time. Now, I will not read the first few lines, which I have already shown you in an earlier slide. I will straight away go to how was it identified in Tamil? Mar, Mara, Maran, a Pandya dynastic name. Here, I must explain. that in verbal form, Maru to Barter remains in Tamil. Till today, Pandamatu. And I have in my paper, given from Sangam literature, number of examples. So the verbal form remains. And in Kannada, it is Maradi, Barter, merchant, Vaishya. But in Tamil, the expected form Maran, Barterer does not occur. It becomes a Pandya dynastic name. From this, I infer that in very remote times, the ancestors of the Pandya in the Indus Valley civilization were Maran, literally Barterers, merchants. This assumption is confirmed by what follows this time. Next slide. We go to the next slide, which we have only seen the view. I should skip the first few lines, which are there only to provide the linkage for the slides. Here, what is addition is old Tamil survival. The literal meaning is Shedi, who. I have in my paper quoted the entry number in Dravidian Etymological Dictionary, 2nd edition by Veda Veda. That is the Bible of Dravidians for getting this form. Shedi, hook, various kinds of go. Now the intended meaning by Indus is shedi, light. It does not occur in modern Tamil, but in Sangam Tamil, shedi means light. And in other Dravidian languages, shedi means lightning as well as thunder. In fact, modern Tamil relief was only Shri with the initial parallel C getting dropped. So, we read it as a hook, and then we identify it as a hook. We read it literally as shedi, and then becomes lightning. And there is a rule in Tamil where the letter T in between two vowels, pronounced D, becomes Veda, Nadi, and there are many examples. So, shedi becomes shedi, and it is from shedi that we get Shedian, a Pandya dynastic name. So, thus we see A and B put together, read Mara, Shediya. Both are uniquely Pandya names. Next. Then we go to the third sign. Here I introduce a compound sign. On the left you find sign C, crossroads of his face. On the right, the crossroads is enclosed within walls. Now, the crossroads is enclosed within 4 walls. So, it is a city, incidentally identical to the city ideogram in the Egyptian hieroglyphic script. Now, so the ideogram is identified so far as the left one is concerned as a street, and from that a settlement and the residence which I already mentioned, and the Indus interpretation I have already mentioned. We will go straight away to old Tamil survival. The literal and intended meaning, as I mentioned earlier, is Padi, street, from which city, town, village, any settlement, from which Pandian. Here I invoke a rule that T can become NT in Tamil, like for example, Tadi, Tandu, and there are many examples. So it picks up a nasal. The body becomes Pandi. As you may know, in the Ashoka inscriptions, Ashoka refers to Pandya as only Pada, that the nasal is drops. So from Padi, I read Pandya. Then there is a corroboration, unexpected corroboration from the compound side, which I have in this paper labeled E for identification. That has got 2 meanings. In Kannada, Padi is row, line, regularity, order. In Tamil, Pali is a city. Comparing with Kannada, I get the meaning crying the city. In Tamil Sangam literature, Pali occurs very often as the city of the valley. And I have many years ago in many papers traced the Veda Yadava clan to Tamil Nadu, taking my cue from Raghava Indus' famous Valley Varalari. Now, Pali can also become Pandi. Here, the rule Ra becomes Tu, Padam, Pandu, Tamil Padam, Telugu Pandu, Tamil Padaya, Pandaya. So, Pali can become Pandi. Thus, in two ways, I can derive Pandian from either the city or from the street. Now we have three in a row: Maran, Shendian, Pandian. But this one goes next row. We saw earlier that the crowd loop has an alternative interpretation. Way, road, path. The first few lines I'll skip because I've read them. Now we take old Tamil survival. The literal meaning is body, way, road, path. We saw earlier. The intended meaning by weavers is body, resident. Also the prosperous one. Hence, Vadi, Vadi, Vadudi, a Pandya name. Now you have Vadi and Vadithina, where the long walk becomes the short walk. So Vadithina and the Vadi are connected. So we have one more name, Maran, Shedian, Pandian, Vadith, just from three signs. Next. And now we go to the whole phrase. This is the end of the second section. In the first section, we saw that these four signs can be read as Indus Dravidian, producing the meaning water receiving city dweller. When 3000 years later, we find the descendants in the Tamil Nadu. Some of them have become chieftains. They remembered their old names, but they did not know the meaning of the name. In Sangam literature, there is no interpretation of this name. In modern times, only one scholar, Durai Arangaswamy, wrote a very good book called Sangakala Tishira Kuppayar, where he speculates among others on this name, but is not able to suggest any meaning. Now we will see what happens. Now reading them from right to left on in the scene. Mara, Shadiya. The next one has got to Vadudi, Pandian. Mara, in the un, you have to each word in the Tamil Marabu, but in the Indus Valley they put it only at the end. So Mara, Shadiya, Vadudi, Pandian. The present study reveals for the first time the true origin and the original significance of the Pandya names and titles. Now, what follows is very interesting. It connects the Indus reading with the Tamil reading. Apparently, on the surface, there is discontinuity, but deep underneath, there is continuity. And that I have shown here. Maran, Vataras, from Mare to Vata. Mar equal to Maran. Shiri, he of the lightning or thunderbolt, from Shiri or Shiri, lightning, thunder. Incidentally, another branch of this family lived in central India who is called Chedi. And from the days of Mahabharata to the day of Kharavela in Kalinga, they are known as Shiri. Vadudi, the prosperous one. Pandian, he of the city. For the first time, we know that Pandian means the person who built or lived in the city. Now here is something interesting which I want you to know. We began by studying the Indus script. We ended up by discovering what old Tamil words mean. The same thing I will show you in this Veda. We begin with the Indus words and we end up with repeated words which get a new light. So this is the end of the second section. We now go to now I go to the third and the last section, which is the most challenging. I shall skip some slides which deal with methodology, asking you to read the paper, but I shall concentrate only on the results. And therefore, here I have talked about the Aryan and Dravidian migration. Unfortunately, the Indian historians are still discussing only the Aryan migration. None of them discuss the Dravidian migration, which according to me is equally important. But I shall not present this slide in this session. Next, we should. And here is the methodology which I have already indicated by comparing the Indus signs, the Dravidian route, the old Tamil survivor and Vedic survivor. They can set up bilingual parallels, but it's a methodological analysis which I shall not present for want of time. We will go to the results straight away. This is the first result. Note, I am beginning with sign C and not with sign A. There are two reasons for it. Number one is sign C is so transparent. All that I have to do is to open the Veda and find out whether there is any god who is related to the word C. So, straight away I get Pataspati, Lord of the Part. The other reason why I am starting with this is structural analysis shows that in the phrase ABCD, C is the main group and D is the grammatical surface and A and B are attributes. It is so also in Tamil that Pandian is the operative main word which occurs in C. So, now we have Pataspati, the Lord of the Part. This is the most frequent epithet of a Vedic god called Purushan. Why is he called Purushan? We will see in the next slide. Now this is an obvious pictorial reading connecting the Indus phrase with Purushan, the Lord of the Part. Purushan is personification of the Part. I am quoting a few phrases from Veda. He is knower of paths, guardian of paths. He protects you from harm on the path. He is the guardian of every path and God of the road. Sayana Acharya, who wrote the commentary on Veda, but for which we would not today understand what the Veda says. So Sayana Acharya explained, Patah Paripati, Sarvasya Margasya Adhipati, overlord of all the pathways. Look at the picture. Here are 4 roads. So a person who is shown to be the Lord of all the roads is introduced by this sign. How did the Indus sign come to this Veda? The answer is the Indus civilization perished, but the people of the Indus Valley remain. They adopted the Aryan speech. They have their folklore. They have their conventional symbols, which the source of which is the Indus civilization. But they are masked, concealed, but getting translated into Sanskrit. The masking is in 2 ways. One is it goes to another language. The other is many times the translation is wrongly done. And yet we can find that out. The wrong translation is approved. So in this case, there is a market change. In the Indus Valley, this sign meant person who lives in the Indus city-based life. But in the early Vedic society, there were no cities. There were only villages. So these become roads of the countryside. And the Veda says, may Purushan save you from robber or wolves on the paths of the countryside. Next. As I mentioned earlier, This particular sign has two meanings in Old Tamil. Very, very remarkably, they also have two meanings in Veda. Now, I should skip the first few words which I have already shown. Start with Vedic survival. Pushan, the prosperous one. Now, Pushan is the proper name of the Vedic god. Etymologically, Pushan is derived from push, to drive. Hence, he is called the prosperous one. In Tamil, Vadi, which also relates to Vadudi. And in Sanskrit, Pushan. The Vedic Pushan is exact long translation of the old Tamil. I won't say old Tamil, it came much later. It is exact long translation of the Indus Dravidian Vadi. Now, the Veda also says that Pushan was very wealthy. A stream of wealth, a heap of riches, and he bestowed wealth. The question is, how does he get all the money from? The Veda calls him a divine herdsman, a cattle keeper, who cannot have all that money. Fortunately, there is one reference in the Veda which tells us the truth. That mentions Pushan's golden ships. Now, the Veda refers to golden ships that travel across the ocean. Samudri, Kirani, Navaha, Charanti. Golden ships travel across the ocean. The golden ships of Pushan. The hymn must be regarded as a record of Pushan's prehistory as a merchant of the Indus civilization, engaged in maritime trade of valuable merchandise, hence the golden ship. But it is a remarkable confirmation of identifying the man of the city as also Pushan, the prosperous merchant of the city. Next. Here I come to probably the most interesting of my findings. I wish I had more time to give you the details, but very briefly, I introduce another sign. We have place at crossroads. As you can see here, the crossroads are outside, the diamond is inside. This means the four roads lead to the city center, town hall, or the village green. It means the place where the public assembled for discussing the affairs of the village. Now, I will start only with the basic survival. The earlier lines have been read, but I will come to detail later. Now, the literal meaning for assembly is Ambalam. Even today, in Tamil, Ambalam. அவருடைய ஊழல் அம்பலமாகிவிட்டது. அது அம்பலத்தில் இயற்றினோம். Ambalam is a court. Ambalam is a temple. Ambalam is a public hall of assembly. And that is our Chitrambalam. Chitrambalam, the lesser assembly, which in Sanskrit is named Chidambaram. Now, Ambal meant assembly. In all the Dravidian languages, you got Ambala, Ambali, Ambale, etc. In later times, now this is a mechanical